We will make a bit of a start. That's quite a substantial amount of people already. Just to let you know, this session is being recorded, but no one can see your faces, so you're safe. And we will be encouraging questions throughout. I'm Lyndsie. I'm the Partnerships Coordination Manager at Best Practice Network, and we're joined here today by Laura Saunders, Lead Facilitator for the Leaders Apprenticeship with NPQs, which we refer to as Lawns. So if you hear us say that, that's what we mean. And we've also got Rachel here helping us with the tech. So over to you, Laura.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lyndsie. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have a sunny afternoon wherever you are in the world. And it's really nice to be talking to lots of people spread all over England. So my name is Laura Saunders. I'm the lead facilitator for BPN, and I work leading the Leader Apprenticeships with NPQs. As Lyndsie mentioned, we lovingly internally call them Lawns programs. So if I default to that acronym, you'll know what I'm talking about. We're going to go on to a little bit about BPN first, and then we'll go into some ins and outs of the programme so that you've got an overview with as much detail as we think that many of you need based on what you've said that you're looking for. So if you're not familiar with Best Practice Network yet, or you haven't done any programmes with us so far, we've shared the vision and the values here by way of an explanation of who we are. We are a highly values-led organisation. Just last week, the wonderful Lyndsie hosted our partnerships conference, and our managing director stood at the front and shared from the heart why we're a values-led organisation. And those values you will see in every single interaction you have with any person at BPN, any piece of content at BPN. And so we challenge you. If you don't see those happening, let us know, call us out on it. But at this point, we want you to know that it's really important when you sign up for a leadership programme that you know that values are at the core and the fore of the writing of the programme and the delivery of the programme. So please be aware of that from the outset. So I just wanted to very quickly share with you these dual award programs, the Lawns programs, what they are and what this means. As many of you wrote in the Q&A, various different versions of the names of these programs. What you've got is a set of leadership NPQs that have been mapped into 2 apprenticeship standards. So the leadership NPQs that have been mapped are the NPQ SL for senior leaders, the NPQ H for headship, and the NPQ EL for executive leadership. And those are all based on the DFE NPQ frameworks. Those have been put into some apprenticeship standards, and the standards are the Level 5 Operations Manager and the Level 7 Senior Leader standard. And so what you've got is a combination of those standards and frameworks into a cohesive set of programmes that the DFE have rigorously checked and feel very, very happy with. And so you've got 3 programmes. The School Leader programme, which is the Level 5 apprenticeship standard with the NPQ SL put into it. The Head Teacher programme, which is the Level 7 apprenticeship with the NPQ H put into it, and the Executive Leader programme, which is again the Level 7 apprenticeship with the NPQ EL put into it. And what's really important to know is the fact that the Head Teacher programme and the Executive Leader programme are both based on the Level 7 apprenticeship doesn't mean that you're getting the same programme. They are heavily differentiated and contextualised to the audience that are likely to undertake those programmes, and obviously they have different NPQs embedded into them. So whilst you will pick one of those 3 programmes in the middle to undertake, School Leader, Head Teacher or Executive Leader, you will get 2 certificates at the end. So both an NPQ certificate and an apprenticeship standard certificate. And that is really, really important. Not only do you get the certificates, it's way more than that. You get a real depth of learning. So Please don't worry about taking in the detail of this slide. It's more about just noting the green ticks and the red crosses. And this is by way of a simple comparison of a standalone NPQ in comparison to one of the Lawns programmes where you're doing an apprenticeship with the NPQ embedded into it. And you can see that because you've got a dual award programme on the Lawns suite, there is more learning and more delivery and support available to you as a learner on one of those programmes. And also you'll notice that the pink boxes at the bottom tell you about the funding. We're going to go into more about that later, but it is they are funded through the apprenticeship levy. Not only do you get an NPQ and an apprenticeship, if you undertake the head teacher or executive leader programme, one of those two programmes, you also qualify for 120 credits of a master's with University of Chester. And what that means is that once you've completed either the head teacher or the executive leader programme successfully, you are in a position to apply to the University of Chester and pay around £3,000 to undertake a 60 credit online dissertation module. That means that you very quickly get the full 180 credits of a master's and so then qualify for a master's. So if you're doing the head teacher or executive leader programs, you can come out of this with 3 different qualifications, extremely hefty and extremely well noticed qualifications. So this is a really, really exciting opportunity. Do ask any questions if you have anything coming up in the Q&A box, but we will cover a little bit more on things like funding as we go through. So now I'm going to very quickly take you to a little around the programme structure, and I noticed that some of you were here specifically to learn about that. So I'm going to start by sharing the structure of the School Leader programme. Remember, that is the level 5 apprenticeship with the NPQ SL embedded into it. And in a second, I'll share with you a little bit around eligibility for this programme and the kinds of people that signed up to the programme and their backgrounds. And then I'll take you on to exactly the same format for the head teacher programme and the executive leader programme. And it'll be a little bit like blink and you miss it, because the structural graphic for the school leader programme, the head teacher programme and the executive leader programme have only very subtle differences. So watch out for those. So let me just go into a little bit more hefty explanation around the school leader, and then we'll do a light level bit about head teacher and executive leader. So for those of you who know anything about BPN's leadership programs, we like to offer a cyclical approach to offer a repeated structure to learners so that it starts to become really, really familiar as you go through a program. So what that means is, after you've had an induction process where there's a first day of learning and there's some onboarding activities and you meet your wonderful apprenticeship performance coach, you then start in cycles. And each cycle kicks off with a face-to-face event. These face-to-face events are hugely popular. Not only because you're in the room with a bunch of colleagues, but there's a great networking opportunity for people within your context, within your area, but also it's the first part of the NPQ element of the learning that's very, very specific to your settings. And each of those face-to-face events is then followed by a short online course that's solely about the NPQ, but also all of those longer lines running across the middle of the graphic. And those things are much more ongoing, which is why they're long lines. So you get monthly tripartite progress reviews that include coaching. You get the opportunity to gain evidence, gather evidence, build your portfolio, and possibly a project if a project on the school leader programme. There's loads of additional enrichment activities and opportunities. And what's really, really great about this set of dual award programmes is that with the NPQ, you get really school or sector specific content that we all need and we all love, but you also get cross-sector, broader leadership theory and content that benefits you not only in your school setting, but in any other parts of your life, if you were to change job in the future, or any other jobs that you've previously done. So there's a lot of links to leadership across lots of different professions. And the School Leader Programme is that taught programme concludes after 18 months, and then you go into the assessment period. More on that later. So what we try to do is ask you to complete the apprenticeship part at around 16 months, could be before, could be afterwards, and then you've got a little bit of time to finish the NPQ, and you have to finish the apprenticeship first before you go onto the NPQ assessment. Again, more on that in a moment. So I'm just going to take you now onto some of the people that are currently on the School Leader Programme, just to give you a sense of the student body and to understand the different contexts from which people arrive. So at the back on the left, we have Gareth. He is an EYFS and Key Stage 1 lead in a primary school. He's an assistant head teacher. He will be an assistant head teacher. Well, he thinks he will. He hopes he will when the opportunity arises, because he knows that's fast approaching. He's been in education for around 4 years. So he did 2 years of his ECT, and then he's had 2 years doing his EYFS and Key Stage 1 lead. Then you've got Andy at the 4 on the left, and he's a secondary HOD. So he heads up his department, but he's really, really interested in promoting to whole school teaching and learning lead, which he hopes is fast approaching, but he can't be quite sure yet. And he's been in education for 10 years. So already you can see the differences between Gareth and Andy. Then you've got Zora, and she wants to be a deputy head in the next 2 years. She's really definite on her trajectory within leadership. And really interestingly, in Zora's progression journey through leadership, she was in the finance sector prior to being in schools, and she's in her ECT2 now. So she's extremely ambitious. She knows exactly what she wants to be and how she wants to do it. And the School Leader Programme is exactly what's going to support her in doing that. Then we've got Kavita. And Kavita is a primary subject lead for English. And she's also the Year 5-6 phase lead. And she's been in education for 3 years. So you can see the difference in how long these colleagues have been in our sector, their different trajectories and progression routes and different ambitions. So just have a think about what that means for you. Where are you in your journey within our sector and within leadership, and how does this programme possibly work for you? Then I said we'd go on to the head teacher, but blink and you miss it, because the structure is very, very similar, but not completely the same. And you'll notice that in terms of the difference, there is an additional face-to-face day on the head teacher programme. There are more hours attached to it, more on that later. But other than that, the structure is exactly the same as the School Leader Programme. So I won't labour that point. But it goes without saying, the content is completely different. It is completely appropriate to those in new to headship or aspiring to headship. So more on that eligibility bit. These are 4 of the colleagues that are currently on the head teacher programme. We've got Aisha, and she is a head of department, but she very much wants to be a head teacher within 5 years. Completely adamant that that's her route. Brilliant. And she knew that she wanted to do this programme. And she didn't want to do the standalone headship programme because she wanted a broader view of leadership from other professions. Then we've got Pete. He's a deputy head. Again, working towards headship. He hasn't quite decided when or where, but he knows that's his route. Then we've got Carol. Excuse me. She is an assistant head teacher, and she's leading on teaching and learning. She is considering all of her future promotions and her career direction. She doesn't know what they are yet, but she knows that this is an obvious route for her in terms of her own CPD. And then finally, we've got Ben. He's a vice principal in a MAT, in a school in a MAT, and he wants to be in a principal role within the next 2 years, possibly within his MAT, possibly elsewhere. Again, like Aisha, really, really sure of the route he wants to take, and he knows that this is the programme for him. Okay, I'm going to very quickly take you onto the Executive Leader Programme structure. And again, blink and you miss it. Structure exactly the same with a couple of tiny differences. Again, the content is completely different. You'll notice that the face-to-face days, there are 6 on the Executive Leader programme, and the first 2 are done together as a residential. And learners absolutely love the opportunity to have extended time with colleagues, to thrash out all of the situations they're facing, all of the learning they're taking on, and to really challenge themselves. But other than that, the programme structure is exactly the same. Content is different. In terms of eligibility, these are 3 of our Executive Leader programmes. We've got Joanna. She's a really experienced head teacher. And because of that experience, she knows she's ready for the next step in terms of both her own leadership, but also the career progression that's natural for her. And so when I say both her own leadership and her career progression, they're not necessarily one and the same thing, as I'm sure you will all know for yourselves. It's obvious that she should be going into executive leadership at this point, but for her, there was a grounding to do in terms of learning more about executive leadership before she felt confident to be able to go into that next career step. And that's what she's gaining by being on programme. Then we've got Enola. She's a new to headship head teacher. And as if that's not a big enough job, she has been asked to consider executive leadership of her MAT within the next 4 years. They know that's approaching and they know she's ready for it, but she needs some support and some scaffolding to do that and some learning through this programme. And then finally, we've got Jim. He's been a head teacher for 5 years, so somewhere in between Joanna and Enola. And he is keeping his options open at this point. He's considering his future roles. He knows it will be strategic, it will be executive in terms of leadership, but he doesn't know what quite that will look like and in what kind of setting. So lots and lots, despite it sounding like a programme of it is what it says on the tin, there are still ways of interpreting whether it's the right one for you. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Lyndsie, quick pause. Are there any questions coming through at this point that would be useful to take?
Yeah, we do have a question. One person asks, are the face-to-face events expected to be during school time? If the school agrees to support the application, does this mean they are agreeing to releasing time for me to attend?
Absolutely brilliant question. I'm so glad you've raised it. So yes, they happen for a whole day during a school day. And yes, when your school sponsors you as part of the application process to enter onto this programme, they are agreeing to release you for those events. They're also agreeing in that contractual phase to support you through various different mechanisms on the programme. It's not just for release for the face-to-face days, but it's something called OTJT, which we'll come to in a minute. I'm purposefully not telling any more than the acronym at this point. And also to be able to nominate an AM, an apprenticeship mentor, who's going to be somebody in school that can support you on programme. And enable you to go to all of your monthly meetings and to collect all your evidence, pieces of work, etc. So there is a commitment in terms of time from the school. Lyndsie, is there anything you wanted to add to that question?
Not really. It is very, very clear. It's made very clear to the school at the point of application, and they do have to sign to say that they're agreeing to everything so that we know that you'll be well supported. We do have another question though.
Great.
Do you have to stay employed at the same school throughout the whole course?
Another great question. No, you don't. There is a change of employer process. What you do, because of the funding, so because it's through the apprenticeship levy by and large for most colleagues, what that means is that the school that you're employed in, either its local authority or its MAT, will be funding it through their apprenticeship levy. And if you change employer during that time, which means that you change the funding pot, essentially, we have to go through a process to change your employer. But that's relatively simple and we really support you with that. Just this week, I've had a question about somebody that's going into a different profession. So that's a different question all over. But if you're simply changing school, it's about checking that they also pay into the apprenticeship levy when you move that to that school, and that they're willing to support you ongoing through the apprenticeship levy on programme. Okay, really brilliant questions. Thank you, guys. Please do keep them coming. Genuinely, no question is a silly question, so do ask them. We're all at really different starting points with what everybody understands about these programs, so do get those into the Q&A box.
We do have another one actually, Laura.
Marvellous. Okay.
Is this suggested for deputy head of years? It sounds like this is more for heads of years. Also, how long is the session, as I need to pick up the little one from nursery?
Brilliant. We will be finished by 2:15. We're all in the same boat. We've all got to go and pick up children, so totally fine. When you say, is this suggested for the deputy head of years, I'm not sure which programme you mean. I'm assuming you mean the school leader programme, which is the first one that we talked about. Yes, it can be, definitely. So it's very much about those who are aspiring to senior leadership within school, or those who are already in senior leadership in school and feel like they need another input and some more CPD, or those who are struggling a little bit and going, I need some more input into how I lead, or those who are in their ECT too and going, hang on a minute, I've got leadership in my sights, and that might include a deputy head of year or a head of year, or a head of department, head of team, head of phase, head of subject, or deputies to all of those. So yes, hopefully that answers your question.
We've also got a question around funding, which probably is better addressed now. What happens regarding funding if you can no longer complete the course at the same school? Is there an expectation to refund anything?
That's a really good question. And what I would advise to get a really comprehensive answer is to speak with our funding team. However, if it is a simple change of employer and your new employer agree that they can take over the funding, then there should not be any need to refund any of the payment, unless, of course, you have dropped behind and you haven't completed work or something like that. That would probably be a caveat there, but I would ask our funding team for some advice on that. I wonder, Lyndsie, actually, if I go on to the next section, if you'd be able to put an email address into the chat box, please.
Sure. It's
Brilliant.
probably worth noting that no individual ever is asked for payment because it's an apprenticeship.
Yeah, it's only ever an organisational payment or funding pot. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Lyndsie. Really great questions. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'm just going to take you on now to some aspects of the benefits of these Lawns programmes. And I just want to leave this quote with you. I'll just give you 30 seconds to read through that and pick out what's really standing out to you. So, apprenticeships are all about application in practice, the so what. It's great to learn about this new theory, this new piece of knowledge. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So what? What am I going to do with that? How is it going to impact me as a leader? How is it going to impact my setting, my colleagues, the young people within my setting? And what this person found was that they started thinking, oh, I'll get some great knowledge, I'll get some great hypotheticals, and then very quickly went, oh my goodness, no, it's completely embedded for me. I am making change in my actual job through this programme. And so we have learners telling us that very, very frequently. So if that's something that seems to work for you, either that's how you like to learn or that's what you need in your leadership journey at this point, then these are definitely the right programmes and approach for you. So I'll just quickly share some of the other benefits. Take a moment to have a look at those. We've mentioned the levy funding a couple of times. We'll come on to that in a little bit more detail shortly. You will access coaching. It is incredibly popular as a strand of the programme. On one hand, the APC, the Apprenticeship Performance Coach that you meet with monthly, or at least speak with monthly, will support you, set pieces of work for you, mark pieces of work, feedback to you, mentor you, support you, question you. But then it gets deeper. As you get into the programme and you find your rhythm with it, they will coach you. And our team of coaches, I say this in a very cheesy way from the heart, are incredible. They are brilliant coaches, all highly qualified and extremely good at their jobs. And all of our learners are saying undoubtedly that is their most favourite part of the programme. So I just wanted to let you know that's a really, really important part. Okay, so I'm going to come on to now a little bit more about those APCs and some of the other people that support you. If you don't know BPN yet, you will soon come to know that we are a highly supportive organisation. Myself, Lyndsie, Rachel, all of our colleagues are here to support you because we genuinely want you to have the best experience possible on your programme. And so the Lawns programmes are designed with a whole set of supporting people, and just very briefly going to take you through those now. So the 3 blue rows are all to do with the support coming from your setting. And the 3 pink rows are all to do with support coming from us and your programme. So somebody was asking earlier about when you are sponsored to apply for this programme, what is it that your employer is saying that they'll support you with? Well, there are 3 layers to the support that they are offering and are contracting and signing to say that they will support you with. The first is when they act as employer. And the employer in your organisation is likely to be a representative from your employer that signs off contracts and funding, somebody that understands the levy pot, possibly somebody from HR, it could be a business manager or a school bursar, and they're likely to have very light touch with you in terms of their involvement with you in your programme. They sign the contracts, essentially. The sponsor role is a senior person within your setting, could be a head, could be a chair of governors, or it could be, if you're on the executive leader programme, it could be a school down the road or somebody else within the trust that you feel comfortable in speaking with. And the crucial role there is that they will complete the formal declaration of support for you, and they will allocate the AM, the apprenticeship mentor. And the apprenticeship mentor, the 3rd row down, is a colleague that's allocated by the sponsor who will offer real-time and practical support for you through monthly tripartite meetings, formative dialogue about your progress, support for you to fully engage with all the elements of the programme, including the face-to-face events that we referenced earlier. Now, in some settings, those 3 blue rows are represented by 3 completely different people. If you're in a really, really big MAT or local authority, there'll be 3 different people. In some settings, it's 1 person and they do all of those jobs. But all of those jobs are really, really important to supporting you on programme. And then the pink ones are the ones that we allocate. So the APC, who I've referenced a couple of times, will be vital to you. It's somebody that you will hold on dearly to. They are appointed by us and they are your main point of contact throughout the entire programme. They will offer feedback on your task submissions. They support you to obtain your evidence for your portfolio. They coach you and they host monthly tripartite review sessions with you and your AM. And I've mentioned the tripartite monthly sessions. That's really important. The tripartite is the triangle, you, the APC and the AM, and it's really important to have all 3 involved at all times. Then you've got the face-to-face event facilitators. Again, they're appointed by us and they lead those face-to-face events that kick off each cycle that I showed you in the graphics earlier. And they're absolutely incredible at what they do. And so they'll likely be different to your APCs, though there might be a little bit of overlap. But you will get to know them over the course of the programme just on the face-to-face days. And then crucially, it's the other learners. Every single learner tells us how valuable it is to learn from each other, both locally in your face-to-face events, but also nationwide through the online elements of your programme. And on the School Leader programme, there's also group coaching as well that you will engage with those other learners with. Okay, just going to take a quick pause. Any questions at this point, Lyndsie?
Not at the moment. Somebody earlier asked if it was necessary to have your school's support in order to do the programme, and I've just answered that yes, it is really important for various reasons. it wouldn't be possible to do it without your school support.
No, exactly. From a technical perspective of signing you up and allocating levy funding, all the way through to a very real and most important aspect of they need to support you on a daily basis to be able to commit to the programme. Brilliant. Thank you, Lyndsie. Okay, so many of you may have heard about functional skills or the place of functional skills or maths and English now within apprenticeships. There have very recently been large-scale funding regulation changes to apprenticeships. So this is in the process of changing. So if you know anyone that has previously done an apprenticeship or is on an apprenticeship at the moment, please ignore any advice that they give you because the funding regulations have changed. So as you sign up for this autumn 25 cohort, it is different. Essentially, it's really, really excellent news in terms of workload in that if you are over the age of 19, which you all probably will be, it will be very unusual for any of you to be under 19, you are not required to evidence your English and maths certificates at level 2, GCSEs, O-levels, etc., which was the case. Neither do you need to undertake English and maths tests as you go, unless you opt in to do those. Very few people do them, but it is a great opportunity to do it if you would like to. Equally, English and maths don't disappear entirely from apprenticeships, these Lawns apprenticeships, because they are deeply embedded into your programme, and you will have conversations about great report writing or budgeting, etc., that really link to English and maths, but it would only be embedded in really relevant content. So just a bit of debunking there. So hopefully that alleviates any thoughts that any of you may have had about, do I need to present certificates? Do I need to take some tests? No, you don't. And then I mentioned the term earlier, OTJT. Please can I ask you to take to your Q&A box and tell me what you think that means, the acronym OTJT. And if you're familiar with apprenticeships, you may have heard of them, those letters. If you aren't, it'll just be like gibberish to you, and that's okay. So if it's gibberish, just write gibberish in the Q&A. But OTJT, what do you think that means? Brilliant, Kerry. Thank you for kicking us off. Anybody else got a response before I share what it means? Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Susan. Brilliant. Now, isn't that interesting? From 3 responses, we've got very, very similar words, but not the same. And they're very, very, it's not semantics. It's crucial that you know the difference. So somebody has said out of job training, somebody has said on the job training, and somebody has said off the job training. Susan and James, points go to you. It is off the job training. Let me explain what that means. It sounds like it's semantics, but it really does matter. And it has confused a lot of people over the years since this was set up as part of apprenticeships nationally. It's not a BPN thing, it's a national thing. Off the job training is time spent during your working hours learning or applying new learning that is outside of your normal day-to-day duties. So it's within your paid contract time, but it's new learning that you wouldn't ordinarily have done in your contract, in your job spec. So it's new learning within your existing hours. And it's designed governmentally to develop and further develop new knowledge, skills and behaviours learnt on the programme. And you'll hear that phrase, knowledge, skills and behaviours, a lot. KSBs, they happen a lot. And they happen alongside the NPQ Learn That and Learn How To statements. And what's really important about off-the-job training is it is a requirement of any apprenticeship. You have to complete it. It is vital. And if you don't complete it, it puts the funding of your programme in jeopardy and therefore your place on the programme. So what we've done is try to make it as easy as possible for you to achieve it. And it is actually quite simple when you think about it, but it can feel quite scary to lots of people who think, oh my goodness, I've got to be allowed time every week. So let me talk you through it. We've built it into the curriculum. So if you complete all parts of your programme within your contracted hours, you will have covered the off-the-job training. Your APCs will work with you and your AMs to make sure that you have planned for naturally arising off-the-job opportunities coming up to you. And that phrase naturally arising is crucial. At these levels, level 5 and level 7, they come up so easily, and they can be really easy to identify additional opportunities. So the School Leader Programme requires you to complete 509 hours over the course of the 18 months. And the Head Teacher and the Executive Leader programmes require you to complete 557 hours over the course of the 18 months. Now, when I say that they're naturally arising, quite easy to clock up, this is what we mean. These are some of the examples of all the things that you can do to make sure that you are attending to the off-the-job requirements. So if you complete every bit of your programme, all of the tasks for the NPQ, all of the activities for your apprenticeship, brilliant, you're clocking them up consistently. If you go to an event where you take on new learning about something to do with leadership that you can maybe utilise in your programme, brilliant, you've clocked it up. Often learners will say to us, oh my goodness, I'm finding it really difficult to think of the off-the-job that's coming up. And we say, well, firstly, do the programme that we set for you, and you don't have to think of it. But also, didn't you just say that you're going down the road to meet with another executive leader about how they are, I don't know, taking on trust status? Yes. Well, is that new learning to you? Yes. Well, and how long are you going for? Well, I'm going for 3 hours. Well, that's 3 hours of off-the-job training. Brilliant. Lots of people take on, I don't know, ethical leadership at the very beginning of our programme. And then they go and talk to their AM about it. And that's new learning that they're consolidating by disseminating to somebody else. That's off the job training, by talking to somebody else and sharing that expertise, that growing expertise. So there's lots and lots of ways of clocking up your off the job. The reason I'm overemphasizing this is lots of people run quite scared about off the job, and it's not something to be scared about. So I just wanted to kind of debunk that for you. Okay, very briefly, I want to quickly talk to you about assessment before we go on to some of the more operational aspects of how to make sure that this program kind of works for you. And I'll pass over to Lyndsie at that point. So since you are getting 2 high-level awards, you need to undertake 2 assessments. They're highly rigorous. High-level awards come with highly rigorous assessments. So it's fair that you have to do 2 assessments. And the apprenticeship assessment needs to happen before the NPQ SAT, the summative assessment task. And I mentioned earlier that apprenticeships have just gone through a raft of new funding regulation changes. So we don't want to offer detail to you at this point because that's all still being worked out. But essentially, the apprenticeship assessment gauges the level 5 or level 7 apprenticeship standard that you've completed. It doesn't touch the NPQ. It's nothing to do with the NPQ. It assesses the KSBs that I mentioned earlier, knowledge, skills and behaviours of the apprenticeship standard. And you must have undertaken all of the off-the-job hours to comply with this apprenticeship assessment. There's an opportunity to get distinction, pass or fail. Our distinction rates are incredible. Lots of our learners aim for distinction from the very word go. We believe in supporting you to do that. We feel that you're entitled to those distinctions because you work so hard on the programmes. Very, very few people fail. The couple of fails we've had have been on technical things. So just so that you've got a bit of a gauge of what that looks like. However, there is an additional opportunity for a resit or a retake, depending on if you did fail, if there was anything. But by and large, everybody passes and most people get a distinction. So more on that as you enter onto programme in terms of the detail and the methods of assessment. But for the SAT, for the NPQ, that's the summative assessment task, it assesses the NPQ element of the programme, and you must have engaged with 90% or more of the programme to be entered for SAT, that including the apprenticeship assessment. And that is all about demonstrating your understanding of the DFE's NPQ framework that's attached to your programme. And that's the Learn That and the Learn How To statements attached to that framework. It's in an 8-day window that is set by the DFE. And in that 8-day window, you are given an unseen case study that will only cover content which is referred to in the framework. It doesn't touch the apprenticeship. And within that 8-day window, you are expected to write and submit a 2,500 word response. And that all has to happen within that 8-day window. There's a tiny bit of wriggle room if anyone has any religious reasons that they can't commit to that window. We can give them an extra day, but that really is the only wriggle room we have. There's a really rigorous marking and moderation process. There is only the opportunity to pass or fail. And there's one additional opportunity for a resit, which is going to be the following year, because we're moving to, nationally, the DfE is moving to one assessment window per year. And then you wait approximately 12 weeks for your results, and your apprenticeship results tend to happen much quicker. Okay. That's a lot of information, but we know that there's some really valuable information that Lyndsie is going to offer to you now.
Hello. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the delivery and where the face-to-face events happen. So in Best Practice Network, we work really closely with what we call our delivery partners. These are normally large MATs or teaching school hubs, other school groups or other education organisations, and they're all over the country delivering our programmes sort of with local context. So what we try to do when we have apprenticeship applications is to group them as far as possible with our delivery partners. So even if that is not possible, what we do is take a broad view of applications coming in, make sure that no participant has to travel more than an hour, and that your location is suitable. If it turns out that the location isn't suitable, there's always the opportunity to swap. We're really quite flexible with things like that. So what do we have here? Yes, the confirming of viable groups always does have to happen right at the last minute, and that's because we sort of have a building picture as time goes on, as people apply. Lots of people apply right at the very last minute, as we all do, and that's when the groups really start to take shape. But then you're offered your group, given the chance to swap, and off you go. You're with your group for the rest of the programme.
Brilliant. Thank you,
Move on to
Lyndsie.
the next. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just want you to take to the Q&A, and we want you to tell us what you think the relevance of this number is. £514 million. Take to your Q&A and just tell us what you think that number represents in terms of statistic. Have a wild guess, given the context of what we're talking about today. Okay, thank you, Carol. She's got started. The cost for funding. Good start. Other thoughts? Thank you, Charity. The amount of money allocated for funding apprenticeships. Yep, great start. I'm not denying or confirming at this point. Funding contribution. Kerry, on the money. That £514 million is the amount of apprenticeship levy unspent or unallocated in the year 2022 to 23. £514 million organisations were paying automatically to the government the apprenticeship levy and then not using it. And we know that schools are part of that, and we are really, really keen that we support you in not being part of that statistic. So Lyndsie's going to take you on now to a little bit of information about the levy, which we know a number of you are looking to access.
Yeah, so we know how much the apprenticeships, the school leader and head teacher and executive leader apprenticeships cost. The apprenticeship itself, the funding covers 100% of these training costs. So that's important to note. The school doesn't directly pay for this. It's out of their levy pot, which is already money that's been taken specifically for apprenticeship training. And neither do you, the participant, have to pay for that. So it's really quite an exciting opportunity. What we are noticing at Best Practice Network, and I'm sure it's the case for any apprenticeship provider, this is quite new for schools. It's only recent that schools have been thinking about using apprenticeships as CPD for their existing staff. It's extremely common in the early years, and this is really how people progress within their careers within the early years, but new for schools. So there's a lot to learn, and it's a bit of a barrier, we think, for schools and trusts to get their heads around how they can use their levy effectively. So at Best Practice Network, we've got a few ways that we can help you. We've got an apprenticeship team who are there to support the school and the participant with everything to do with accessing the levy and making sure all of the nitty-gritty is done. If you're from a levy-paying school, funding will be drawn down directly using your apprenticeship service account. This is, again, something that our apprenticeship team help you with, setting up in the first place, and then sort of any ongoing questions. They're there at every step. If you are a non-levy paying school, the Education and Skills Funding Agency fund 90% of the course fee through a co-investment scheme. So that means that the remaining 5% is paid for by your school, but that's over the duration of the programme in instalments, and actually ends up being quite a tiny amount on a monthly basis, sort of £30 or £40. So a couple of sort of additional points. When your school or your trust is initially considering using their apprenticeship levy, maybe for the first time, or maybe they've only been using it for support staff or admin staff, it's important to get a few people together to to make it work well. So you probably need somebody from finance, somebody from HR, and somebody who has oversight of CPD for the school. With those three people in the room, you have the person who probably understands the school or MAT's levy pot. You have the HR person who will be undertaking the setting up of the apprenticeship service account, potentially, and you have the person in charge of CPD who can visualize which staff might be appropriate for which apprenticeship. And what we're trying to work with are the MATs that we work with and help them is to help them plan ahead and use their apprenticeship levy strategically, maybe 2 or 3 years in advance of planning, so that the CPD element isn't conflicting, so that cover is balanced, and also to make sure that that levy pot is being utilised to the full and not overspent. Although actually, if you do overspend, it is possible to borrow other organisations' levy funding, and there is absolutely enormous amount of levy funding there if you need it. And we're now working with MATs who, having realised what is available, have absolutely spent every penny of the levy funding and are now approaching other organisations via a government platform to acquire more. So it's worth, especially if you're in senior leadership, taking this information away to your schools and your multi-academy trusts, so that this can be a more wide conversation and can benefit even more staff in your organisation.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lyndsie. Hopefully that was incredibly useful and insightful to everybody on the call. Okay, so there's just a final one from you around our pathways.
Yeah, so apprenticeships, we have been running apprenticeships for a number of years now, but a lot of our apprenticeships are quite new. The early years apprenticeships are most long-standing. So in terms of thinking of for schools who have nursery provision attached, there is a pathway for your early years staff, starting at level 2, going up to level 5. We introduced fairly recently a teaching assistant level 3. That's for a teaching assistant perhaps at the beginning of their career. They can move on to specialist teaching assistant level 5, and in that apprenticeship they can specialise in SEND or behaviour and wellbeing, or a curriculum, a particular aspect of the curriculum. And that is important because it's the entire programme that is based around that specialism. So over time, in theory, you could acquire, for example, an entire cohort of teaching assistants with SEND specialism, which, as we know, would be extremely useful given the children that our TAs are quite often supporting. From a TA level 5, it's possible to do a postgraduate teacher apprenticeship, which gives you QTS. So what we're finding at the moment with our postgraduate teacher apprenticeships, it's often teaching assistants who have a degree who are making that jump, who perhaps, like most people, don't have the time or money to take an entire year out to undertake teacher training, and this is perfect for that person and that school where the individual is already embedded in that school and they can do their teacher training whilst on the job. And then for existing teachers, there is obviously the leadership apprenticeships with NPQ SL, H or EL that we've been talking about. With we have sister companies who supply additional apprenticeships that we can offer. So there is a route through finance apprenticeships, sort of admin support apprenticeships, and one of our most popular apprenticeships at the moment are the Thrive Wellbeing apprenticeships. So these come with Thrive practitioner qualifications, which I'm sure you're all aware of, something that is normally paid for, but now is attached to an apprenticeship, so the school can access through their apprenticeship levy. One is teaching assistant level 5 with Thrive practitioner qualification, and the other one is for a school leader. So all very interesting. Also, brand new information. Last week we launched a level 5 coaching in education apprenticeship. And for some reason, well, we know the reason, it has really kicked off out there. It seems to be something that was in dire need. So we will be able to provide more information about that. In fact, I'll pop the link in the chat so that you can see. But it's something that's on the horizon, and applications are already open for those schools who want to train their own coaches rather than buying in, which is obviously an additional cost for a school. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Lyndsie. So yeah, hot off the press on the coaching and education apprenticeship. Just to bring us back to the Lawns programmes that sit within that set of pathways, I just wanted to end on a few of the learner perspectives that have been shared with us. Take a moment to look at those. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of them. So the top right, it's been easier to get a promotion as a result of my learning on this combined programme. Lots of our learners tell us that that is incredibly important to them. And so actually employers across our sector look very favourably at people who have done an apprenticeship standard as well as the NPQ through this dual award programme. And then the bit that I really wanted to pull out to you is the bottom right one. I have truly reflected and continue to reflect on my leadership and how it affects the pupils, colleagues and communities I lead. We as teachers say we don't have time. We are extremely time poor. And moreover, when do you have time to reflect, to really think, this person said that this program was their route into not just sitting and reflecting, but truly reflecting and continuing to get into that habitually on their leadership, and crucially then how it affects all the people around them, including their wider communities. This is a big deal and really does support our leadership capacity as a sector. So do consider how this can support you. And if any of you out there are considering how you talk to colleagues who might sponsor your application for this, and you're worried that they won't, then some of these quotes may very well support you. Do utilise these slides. We have recorded the session that will be made available to you. Do look on the website, make sure that you spend some time sharing with them the benefits of these programs. And if you want any more on that, there's absolutely bucket loads on the website. If you follow the 2 circles, if you follow the toolbar to the apprenticeships and then the Leader Apprenticeships with NPQs, you'll get much more information. You can download the qualification specifications. And then just crucially, have a chat with somebody. Even if it's not the person who's going to sponsor you through it, chat through with somebody that's going to support your CPD so that you can really start having a very healthy conversation about what this could do for your development. You can always contact us through our live chat function on the website, or there's also an email address and a phone number there for you also. We have basically the next cohort starts in the autumn this year. And it is likely to be the last time we move to 1 cohort per year. Though that is not confirmed yet, it is likely to be autumn 25, then it's going to be autumn 26. And what's crucial is if you're looking at one of the level 7 programs, the government are reviewing the place of level 7s, and that senior leader level 7 apprenticeship standard is likely to not be in existence beyond January. So if you want the level 7 attached to an NPQ, you need to apply for this autumn 25 cohort. That's really, really important. We actually have an inordinate amount of applications already, so I would get them in quickly to start guaranteeing yourself a place. Okay, we have run to an hour now, so if you have any questions, do please stay on the line and pop them into the Q&A box. Equally, if you, like many other people, have little ones to go and collect from nursery, as somebody did earlier, or you have other commitments to go on to, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate spending time with you this evening, but also all of your great questions, and we look forward to seeing your applications arrive in soon. So please do feel free to leave. If anyone has any questions, myself and Lyndsie will just hang on for a minute or so, and then good luck and have a great evening. Thanks, everybody. I'll just wait 1 more minute. There we go. Helen, when is the next cohort for NPQ SL open, and what are the deadlines for applying this? Okay, if you mean standalone NPQ SL, it's coming up in the autumn 25 that I was just talking about. If you mean the school leader programme, that's the level 5 apprenticeship with the NPQ SL, that is also autumn 25. Please do get your applications in as soon as possible. The deadline is the end of this term. So go and have those conversations with the person that will sponsor you now. Thank you, Helen. No problem. Thank you for your question. I can't see any other questions coming in at this point. Oh, there's one. If I were to have to put a pause through the course, will that be an issue? In apprenticeship world, a pause is called a break in learning. If you know that's going to happen ahead of time, then it's something we need to discuss before you apply. So get in touch with our funding team. It's just something you are thinking is potential, but you're not necessarily anticipating. Get your application in and we cross that bridge when we come to it. But yes, breaks in learning do happen. We have to stop the funding and restart the funding and find you the most appropriate person to pick your programme up with you when you return, etc. But yes, it is completely possible. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you, James. Okay, there are no other questions coming in at this point. We're a couple of minutes over, so we will say goodbye. If you have any more questions, get them over to us on the email address that we shared earlier, and have a great evening. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.